So I just wanted to talk about Cyberpunk Edrunners, Cyberpunk 2020. Jeez, can't speak. That recently came out on Netflix, and I was super hyped to see it. I'm still a fan of Cyberpunk 2077, and I played that game like a ton. I've probably made 5 different characters, and I still want to go play it whenever it's my free time. I was streaming it for a little bit, but this is a love letter to that game, essentially. I know the game has had a rough launch, and it's buggy. It's still buggy, even though they've updated and stuff like that. I don't agree with how the release of the game went. However, I did fall in love with the world and the whole cyberpunk atmosphere. I was actually introduced to that type of punk atmosphere by the video game. So when I say this show is a love letter to the game, I mean it very literally. Like, every locale that the show takes place in are actually places on the game, and I think this is how you do a TV show via video game correctly, because usually, like, video games are cursed to having bad media presence, right? They have bad movies, they have bad TV shows. This is what I wish Halo had done fan service wise. They stuck 1-to-1, like, all the guns in the show are in the game, most of the clothing is in there, all the upgrades, most of everything you see is in the game. There's literally like little to nothing that is made up. I mean, even down to like the buildings and the maps, and they make references for the players on multiple occasions. And so yeah, the game's, I gotta sneeze. Wow, excuse me. So the show is very much dedicated to the game, not so much the board game, but the video game itself that came out. The show itself, it looks beautiful. The animation's really well done. There are moments that are very stylized, and then there are moments that play like your Saturday morning cartoons, where they sit still a lot and they talk, but they mix this in with the soundtrack that's also from the game. I think they only had like one original soundtrack, but every song that pops up is from the game, and they try to fit the song to fit the mood of what's going on, and I think they do a really good job fading them in and out. And but whenever you do have those moments where everything is still, it is very visually pleasing, and it's one of those things where they show don't tell. However, even though I like to complain a lot about shows saying, they tell us too much exposition, in Cyberpunk Edrunners, they definitely give out exposition as well, but it's a balance of showing and telling. So they do a good job balancing the story. There's a lot of things in there for people who want to look deep into it. Every character, side characters, things like that. The story is basically morality, and everyone figuring out their own reason to live or their own purpose. And the whole thing about Cyberpunk is you have to die to become a legend. So you're a nobody if you're alive. And so everyone is trying to create a legacy. And in every little thing that goes into the character, from how they're built, how they're drawn, to the cybernetics that they use, is foreshadowing that character's story arc in Edrunners, and it's beautifully told and it's beautifully shown off. Now, I keep talking about visuals. The story is well written and well told, and there is a lot of gore. When I talk about animation story, if you want to see some gore, you want to see some nudity, it's in there. It's an absurd amount, like, not to a bad degree, right? It feels like Cyberpunk, so it fits in nice. And I never felt like, even though the show is called Edrunners, the show never felt edgy to me. It just towed that line perfectly. It fit its atmosphere just right, and the fan service was non-stop. I mean, non-stop. If you played the game, even if you played the game for 5 minutes, there's no way you won't notice something that was in there for the fans. So other than that, like, voice acting was phenomenal, and you'll recognize some of the voices in there, but I recommend it. I'd honestly give it like a 9 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10. There's not a lot wrong with it. I think the only thing that got me was you knew something was gonna happen or something. Maybe the fan service was too heavy-handed, but I could be being biased here because I enjoyed every bit of the fan service that was handed to me, like, because I played it so much. And even if you, because I'm trying to imagine it if you hadn't played the game, because if you hadn't played the game, some of the fan service that was dealt out, like characters that kind of came out of nowhere to talk to you, you'd be like, who is that? What does that mean? But the show is written in a way that even out of context, it makes perfect sense. So even then, yeah, I still 100% recommend it. If you are, if you feel like you got a weak stomach, just be careful. There's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of gore, and they're not afraid to show it, and I appreciate that. It's very much 9 out of 10. Go check out Cyberpunk 2077 Edrunners. Until next time, play nice, YouTube.